Hi everyone, welcome to After Class.
A podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
And some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
or a cup of coffee
and join us for a quick chat after class.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of After Class. Today we are going to be talking about watching ballet and why watching ballet is so critical for improvement. So let's get into it. Hello, Yelena.
Hello everyone. Hello, Hannah. This one is a very interesting topic. We've been talking about it and we thought about it for quite a while now. And the best part of it is we are not making it up. There is actual studies behind it to really back up everything that we're saying. So it is true.
Yeah, I think this is a fun topic because it's something that I noticed for me. Like, I feel like watching ballet is really helpful and trying to kind of put my finger on why that is. And so it was interesting because in preparing for this episode, actually, and doing some research, there was a study done in the 1990s with a neuroscientist, and he was studying mirror neurons, which is like a type of brain cells. And these neurons activate when we watch another person performing an action. So the same neurons that would fire if we were actually doing something fire when we're watching someone do the same thing. And so it's interesting because I feel like that's such a correlation of why watching ballet is helpful, because literally when we're watching ballet as ballet dancers, we're activating those same brain cells as when we're actually doing it. So all that to say, there is real science to back up why you should watch ballet and why it will help you improve. So we're going to just dive into that this episode.
Love it. So basically, if you want to dance ballet, you don't need to practice ballet. You can just watch ballet.
It is actually interesting because what came out of the research is that when you are watching something, it's actually priming your body and your nervous system to perform better when you are actually dancing. So all joking aside, this isn't to say that you can just replace dancing with watching, but watching does help you when it is your time in the studio and you're there doing it. Your brain and your nervous system is actually better primed to take in the information in class and to actually do the dancing. So obviously, super important to watch ballet. And I think it's something that most dancers we like to do for fun anyway. But I think there's ways to do it where you can actually get the most benefits from watching ballet. So
yeah, something that is really interesting that I just thought of it is not just dancers who do that. Like, actually, I know a lot of professional rock climbers, athletes that do. Obviously, when you look at the climbs in America, they are like hundreds of meters of climb. And there is one, Alex Honnold. He's really famous for doing the free soloing climbing with no rope, no nothing. And he goes in the El Capitan. And he did it, like hundreds and thousands of meters of climb. And he write them down in notes. He puts all of the movement, like a little right hand here, right hand there, whatever. He puts them in a notebook, and he used that and videos of himself doing it with rope so he can memorize how he did it. And then he sits down, like he flat down in front of the cliff, and he starts memorizing. And he starts like actually moving his hands and his arm as if he was on the wall. So he can remember step by step like a choreography. And then he plays that again and again and again and again in a TV. And he sits in his van right in front of the cliff, watching again and again and again those videos.
that's amazing because it's like a completely different type of movement, but it just goes to show that just watching, it really is getting embedded in your system and in your body. So another benefit too of this, I think, and this is where I had thought of talking about this really helped me, is watching professionals and watching professional productions. Over time, it starts to develop your sense of what looks correct. And that, especially if you're someone who is learning online or practicing on your own, it's really helpful for self-correcting and your ability to almost coach yourself when you have an eye for what looks right. And the way that you develop that is by watching professionals and people who are doing it correctly. And so that's another huge benefit of watching ballet, is that you're starting to internalize certain standards or certain levels of doing things with your line, your port de bras, your épaulement. So that's another great reason why you should watch ballet.
And ballet is so relative to what you like. You won't like every dancers, you won't like every line, but you will see, let's say, Tamara Rojo, and I keep mentioning her, I love her, but you can compare her to Sakarova, for instance, and you was like, oh, I didn't like the former's line. I like more the second dancer, so I will actually go for that standards. I think that if that looks good to me, why mine wouldn't look like as well, right? And then you figured out that it turned out that is nice and comfortable. In the ballet, it didn't look like a 160 degrees. It just looked comfy. And then the way she posed that ankle forward and whatever, you can realize that your standards doesn't need to be, oh, it needs to be high and professional and perfect. You can actually just guide yourself through one specific dancer, one specific line, a movement that you like, and just base what is meant to look like by them.
Mhm.
And in reality, as adults, because we have so much experience already, it's not like little kids, we are molding them. We can slowly kind of like, okay, this is the way we're going to move. And you spend years doing that. With adults, we already have that logic behind us. We already know that movement leads you to this. So we put a lot of logic behind it. And I think that by having that reassurance from the visual cues that you see on professionals, oh, that's right. That's why the line looks longer because she actually did this, or this is why she can balance more because she did that other step. So that, so having that logic behind the instructions that we receive and actually having the reassurance through professionals doing it or professionals showing another way to do it, that's great as well.
Yeah, and I think the more you are watching other people and you're watching professionals, it's like your own artistry can become informed by seeing not just if the things that they're doing are technically correct, but if the things that they're doing really speak to you and are something that you would like to start incorporating into your own dancing. And so, like, I think sometimes it's obviously like we want our dancing to be our own, but watching other people is such a great source of inspiration for artistry as well. And so, in addition to the technique of like, oh, is this actually the correct way to do it? It's also, I like that way of doing it, you know? And because like we've talked about this in past episodes, there's so much variation even between different schools. And so, watching different companies and dancers that were trained in different backgrounds and the way that they dance is going to really give you a fuller picture of the options that you have within ballet.
Yes.
Because even though it's like an arabesque is an arabesque to some degree, there's variance in there, you know, from different schools and different backgrounds. And so I think it's fun to watch different dancers doing the same
Yeah.
step. Hey, adult dancer, do you love the podcast and want more resources, news, and tips to support your ballet goals? Head over to thebusybunhead.com, your source for all things adult ballet. Stay in the know, find community, and fuel your motivation with resources like the bulletin board, a free monthly newsletter, and the Bunhead Book Club. Brand new to ballet? Book a session to get your questions answered. It's all waiting for you at thebusybunhead.com.
The technique behind the pirouette, right? Pirouette is the same for everyone. However, not every school has the same height for the retire. By understanding that you can do the retire a little bit lower, a little bit higher, the Russians has it more cross, the Cuban school has it more open and slide to the side. You can play with those different techniques and explore what works for you. And it doesn't mean like, oh, the teacher just said to do it this way, but you saw professionals doing it in another way and it worked for them. It looked great and it actually works. So why wouldn't you be able to explore? And then you start creating that inform the why behind technique as well, right?
I think especially for me, one of the things that watching ballet has really, really helped with is épaulement, because as an adult coming back to it and having to just kind of jump into whatever class level I could find, there wasn't a clear breakdown of the épaulement part of a movement. But what I realized is because I had spent a lot of time over the years watching professional ballet, I could tell when something didn't look right in the mirror because I had watched professionals do it so many times that I knew, if my arm is here, my head should be here versus looking in a different direction because I knew it wasn't quite right. And I really believe that that's from watching ballet. And so even with the more nuanced, actually probably especially with the most nuanced pieces of ballet of like the épaulement and just, fingers, hands, those are really the things that I think watching ballet you really start to internalize. If you're watching a video of yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, why do my hands look weird? It's probably because you've watched professionals dance and you realize that there should be a softness there and maybe your hands look a little more like stiff.
And the movement doesn't finish, the movement keeps flowing, and
Yeah.
you are just doing pose and stay. Meanwhile, it's more continuous and keep breathing, keep doing. So, yeah, that's true. Something interesting as well on that point is connecting, like, that's exactly what you were talking there, is connecting what you're learning in the class plus the technique plus what you see on the professionals and finally being able to be like, oh, so all the training that I have done on the mirror, like go in and no, it doesn't work, and stretch again and that line doesn't work, and then you saw the professionals how they actually, okay, so this is what it's the training for. So I actually need to repeat that. I actually need to pay attention to not just the technique, but the artistry and all that combines together. And it goes back to the passe. You practice passe, practice passe, practice passe. And then you see professionals blending that perfect clean period, and you're like, yeah, that's why we actually, because it's frustrating as an adult sometimes to do the same with the same with the same and not having that visual. Why am I doing these many periods? Why am I just practicing? I just got one period. Why do I need to go and go and go and go? Because you're trying to perfect the landing. Probably you're trying to perfect that control and then down. And then when you saw the professionals doing on the classical ballets, you're like, oh, that's why we can finally make a logic out. Although we understand it, although we know it, but sometimes that frustration of keep going, keep going, keep going, and it doesn't happen, it doesn't go. Like, okay, well, we have to keep going. We have to keep practicing. We need to keep trying because at the end, this is what it's going to look like once I mastered that soft landing or that high passe or whatever.
Totally. I mean, I think it's hugely motivating to watch professional ballet. I mean, sometimes it can also have its moments where it's discouraging because you're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to dance like that? But I think if you allow it to inspire you and really show, like to your point, what the purpose is of endless repetition and like grinding in the studio, and then you watch a professional and you think like, oh, that's what all this is for. One of the things too, if you're going to watch professionals, not just watching productions, but watching professionals rehearse. So like I know the Royal Ballet, they put a lot of their rehearsals on YouTube and even on social media. A lot of times dancers will post their rehearsal process. And that's also a great kind of ballet content to be watching, is just to see the way that they're working when they're in studio and in process, because you can learn a ton from that as well. And the things we talked about earlier of like watching them go through rehearsing choreography, it's also engaging your brain in a really similar way to if you were dancing. And so then when you're in the studio next time and you're able to implement the feedback that they're getting from their coaches and watching them implement it, it can really actually help you.
Yeah, that it's also good to see professionals struggling somehow as well. Like, see, not struggling, but see them working their way through problems and not being able to
Yeah.
do this or not being able to get the corner or not being able to whatever. That also inspire you and make you realize that it looks effortless and it looks whatever, but they actually go through the same process that we do, frustration and a little bit of this encouragement and going and practicing and whatever, and that will make them human and it will make you feel like inspired and trusted the process, and it's true.
Yeah. So now that we've convinced you that watching ballet is beneficial, we have some practical tips for you on how to watch ballet that will really help you improve. So the first one is to watch actively, meaning that you're focusing on one element at a time. So obviously, any of us who have watched a performance know that there's a lot of things that you can be looking at, of like feet, arms, costumes, choreography, all the things, but picking one thing that you are going to consciously focus on when you are watching a performance is a really great way to maximize the learning.
Definitely. For instance, say Swan Lake. If you were to watch Swan Lake, what would be that first thing that comes to mind? To me, the arms, straight away. And I will just focus that first time. Don't even think about the plot, the scenes, act one, act two, and whatever. No, don't think about that. Think about the whole arms movement. And then you will be like, oh, I'm going to focus this time on transition steps, the glissa, the whatever, all those connecting steps, and you'll be like, oh, there's lots of connecting steps on classical ballets, and then you will slowly learn to pick things out of it, and you will find yourself getting new techniques and recognizing stuff, and it will be very impressive at yourself when you can see those differences, right?
Yeah, and I think another way you can kind of narrow it down too is even to just focus on something that you're struggling with. Like I know I've done that in the past where like if I'm struggling with a step, I'm watching professionals work, specifically looking to see them do that step and seeing what they're doing, like looking at their alignment, looking at where their weight is placed and things like that. Because I think sometimes we can learn so much even just from watching someone else do it who is at that level. And like I know also too for me, like when I was starting point, it was really fun to watch professionals specifically just watching their feet and watching how they used their shoes and how they worked through their shoes. So, like, picking the things that are really relevant to you and what you're working on in your training. Also, too, it's really amazing that you can use slow motion on YouTube.
Exactly.
So, like, that is a great thing. Like, going back to what I was saying, if you're wanting to watch a professional do a specific step that you're struggling with, watching them do it in slow motion so that you can really see, especially if it's something like a turn or a jump, like you can watch really, really slowly their body mechanics of what exactly they're doing, preparing for a pirouette, how quickly are they arriving at the position, what their spot is doing, things like that. I mean, that is such a great way to really like punch in even further and get even more out of watching
Yeah.
them dance.
Basically, we are authorizing you to be a creep on the internet. But it's true. Like when I teach my short choreographies on YouTube, I always say use the slow motion and go back. Just go all the way to the beginning. Don't follow me because you have something already recorded. Go slow on your own pace. Learn, watch, recheck the step. Do it by yourself. Go back again.
So, what are some ballets that you would suggest people watch and like maybe your favorite dancer in those ballets?
Oh my God. I will say, I keep saying Tamara Rojo. I just love anything she does with lots of balance, showing her feet and just jumping lots. So I would say Quixote, Don Quixote, probably. I would say my favorite one to watch, definitely find your favorite company and watch Swan Lake from them. And then find your favorite dancer. And I think if it's a well gifted dancer with lots of jumps and lots of balance, Don Quixote for sure. The girl has so much to show there. What about you, Hannah?
Well, it's not my favorite ballet, but I think it's always good to familiarize with the classics. And I think Natalia Osipova as Giselle is really beautiful because her
Yes.
acting ability, like and the artistry part of what she does. And so I think, especially if you're looking to inform that part of your dancing specifically and you're wanting to watch something to really inspire artistry, I think that her interpretation of Giselle is beautiful. And then, of course, anytime just watching her jump, I mean, her jumps are absolutely incredible. She defies gravity. It's like she goes up and then she just hangs for a minute and then she comes down.
No, it is so high off the ground. I
Yeah.
love it.
Uh-huh. There's
Yeah.
actually another one
Levitate.
to watch is her doing Flames of Paris because there's the part where she jumps with the man and there's one video where she is getting the same amount of air and hang time as the male counterpart, which is pretty rare to see the female getting as high off the ground and as much ballon as the male.
That's
She's
true.
just like
I haven't heard that word in forever since Cuba because we use it. We use that word, the balloon. We use
Uh-huh.
it, and I haven't used the word. Haven't heard that.
That's so funny. My teacher,
Years.
my in-person teacher uses it all the time when we're doing petit allegro and grand allegro. She's
I
like,
love
"Use the
it.
ballon."
Like, oh gosh.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't
Uh,
know, ballon is
it's
the energy of being off the ground,
holding
kind
the
of
jump.
staying up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holding
Yeah.
rather than jumping down, down, down. You jump up and up. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I
Like
want to
that.
audition immediately. I feel
The
like
bounce. So Natalia Osipova is amazing to watch for jumps and slow motion, going back to if you can use the slow motion feature on YouTube and you really see like how she uses her transition steps going into jumps.
that push into the jumps. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, and she's one too that I think, to your point, it's interesting when you watch because or I mean, not saying she doesn't have perfect technique because her technique is amazing, but when she's performing, she dances with a lot more abandon and freedom, and things aren't so like perfectly technically placed. And I actually think that for adults, especially, that's also a really good reminder because I think in class can become so much about technical perfection. And one of the things I always realize when I'm watching her, especially, but there's other dancers too that when I watch, it's like remembering that the whole point of class and training that way is to actually be able to dance with like that sense of freedom and abandon. And so at the end of the day, is it really about having perfect turnout or is it about having
Yeah,
enough technique
exactly.
to support you being able to dance really free?
And enjoy.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so I think that's another great takeaway from watching ballet is remembering what the whole point really is. The point
Yeah.
is to dance like that,
I think,
not in
yeah.
technical level, but like that in the artistic expression and in the joy of it. And
Really,
that's
the technique is there to help you stay healthy, safe, and out of injury. That's why technique is there. But when you dance, you dance. You want the freedom, the artistry, the musicality, the coordination. The technique is just to keep you safe, for you to not land, and then your knees go in, and then you're like, I broke everything. So that's why technique is there. And that's why I'm keep saying professional dancers don't use ballet for like, oh, I need to keep the turnout and I didn't transfer my balance. And, oh, no, they using it to get ready to warm up. And when you look at them, I hated it. I hated it really to teach in professionals or do a ballet class with professionals. I hated it because it's just like they wouldn't do anything clean. They wouldn't. They are just so focused on getting the right muscle warm. I need to do more relevés. So you say 2 pliés relevés, and they will do 6 pliés relevés because they want to do what they want to do, because they want to listen to the body, which in their defense, it's great. But that's why we don't need to be that close in the box of, I need to do the perfect glissade. No, do a glissade that lands well so you don't hurt yourself, but enjoy the in between.
I think especially for adults that translates into center work. It's like if you're going to be really nitpicky about being perfect, clean technique, use the bar for that. And then when you get to center and your teacher gives you combinations, dance a little more and enjoy. And like I am speaking to myself right now. Like I have the hardest time getting out of my own head, but it's like that's something that again, like going back to watching ballet, that's something every time I watch, I'm always reminded of is this is the whole point of why we do bar and why we take class is to be able to really move in a way that's joyful and feels authentic in our bodies and feels present. Also, like, let that inspire you as you watch ballet. So, I think everyone should pick a ballet to watch this week. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode and definitely let us know if you pick a ballet to watch this week and what you learned from it. Maybe we'll do a poll or something over on social media. Don't forget that the slow-mo button on YouTube is your best friend. And if you feel kind of overwhelmed with where to start, just pick something that you're struggling with in class and watch a professional
Exactly.
production and look for that particular step or that particular topic, whether it's a palma, working on pirouettes, whatever it is, and just watch and slow things down and use it to inspire your own artistry and your own dancing this week. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And if you did, we would love it if you could take a moment to leave us a review. It really helps other dancers find us, and we read every single one. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Bye. Thank you for listening to After Class.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us, our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.